everyone, and welcome to this stream, well, rather video recording. And today we are going to be going into the Empress, which is the third card or the fourth, depending on how you want to look at it. You know what? I'm just going to call it the third card because the Fool is card 0. And this is the card that sort of links Bina and Chokmah, and it's sort of attributed to Salt. The linking between them, and it's how it goes across the High Priestess and Darth. And as you can see here, love, beauty, happiness, pleasure, success, completion, good fortune, graciousness, elegance, luxury, idleness, dissipation, debauchery, friendship, and gentleness and delight. So as far as I know, this card is more sort of relegated to things like love, and that's why it's There's that reason why it's in between these two here, above the years supernal triad. So let's get into it. We will start from the very beginning. This card is attributed to the letter Daleth, which means adore, and it refers to the planet Venus. This card is, on the face of it, the complement of the Emperor, which is this one over here on the tree. But her attributions are much more universal. Okay. On the Tree of Life, Daleth is the path leading from Chokmah to Bina, uniting the father with the mother. Daleth is the one of the three paths which are altogether above the abyss. So, yeah, it's sort of more above than these two, and it's the one that links them. There is furthermore the alchemical symbol of Venus, the only one of the planetary symbols which comprises all the Sephirot of the Tree of Life. The doctrine implied is that the fundamental formulas of the universe is love. Yeah, there you go. Once again, love. The circle touches the Sephirot 1, 2, 4, 5, 3. The cross is formed by 6, 9, 10, and 7 and 8. I'll look at that a bit later, maybe. But maybe for anyone watching, maybe look into that, because that's probably something quite important there. It is impossible to summarize the meaning of the symbol of the woman, for this very reason that she continually recurs in infinitely varied form, many-throned, many-minded, many-willed daughter of Zeus. In this card, she is shown in her most general manifestation. She combines the highest spiritual with the lowest material qualities, which is actually a very, very important thing, because it's like as above, so below. Feet drag her below the hells, and our heads are up in the heavens. And I think that's also the same thing with, like, the most profane can become the most sacred, or is, and it sort of contains each other. It's a bit like how the highest is made up the lowest, and vice versa, you know? Like holy fools sometimes been seen as dirty or uncouth, and also to see, like, people up there in power, you know, how they're all very corrupt and disgusting and shitty people, but they're also up high. So that's something to think about. For this reason, she is fitted to represent one of the three alchemical forms of energy, salt. Salt is the inactive principle of nature. Salt is matter which must be energized by sulfur to maintain the whirling equilibrium of the universe. The arms and torso of the figure consequently suggest the shape of the alchemical symbol of salt. There you go. Yeah. See how so sort of like the line down the middle and the circular sort of motion there. So yeah, there you go. So for those who don't know, salt is sort of the body in alchemy. You could say that our physical structure is the salt, and sulfur could be things like our blood, our muscle, and our digestive juices. That's sort of give energy and motion to the manifestation of it, because all things that actually have any kind of movement actually still need to be attached to something dead. It's a bit like how when you burn something, there's still ash left behind, and that's sort of regarded as salt in alchemy. While the sulfur is the active, fiery principle that does get burnt away, and I guess mercury is sort of air, which actually gives spirit and the ability to burn it from sulfur into salt, or to just rather leave behind salt. So She represents a woman with the imperial crown and vestments, seated upon a throne whose uprights suggest blue twisted flame symbolic of her birth from water, the feminine fluid element. In her right hand, she bears the lotus of Isis. The lotus represents the feminine, or passive power. Its roots are in the earth beneath the water or in the water itself, but it opens its petals to the sun, whose image is the belly of the chalice. Oh, okay, yeah. That sort of makes sense because the cup, it's sort of the receptacle, and the chalice is actually sort of representative of like that capturing of the sunlight in a sense. And that's what the water into wine sort of thing is, and why it's attributed to Dionysus and Christ and that kind of thing. Turning water into wine is that alchemical process. It's basically the marriage of heaven and masculine and feminine. That's what wine is, in a large respect. All right. Its roots are the earth beneath the water or in the water itself, but it opens its petals towards the sun. It is therefore a living form of the Holy Grail, sanctified by blood of the sun. There you go. I haven't even read this yet, and I knew that. So it's sanctified by the blood of the sun. There you go. Perching upon the flame-like uprights of her throne are two of her most sacred birds, the sparrow and the dove. The nub of this symbolism must be sought in the poems of Catullus and Martial. On her robe are bees, also dominoes. Is there? There actually does seem to be that. I didn't notice that. Surrounded by continuous spiral lines, the signification is everywhere similar. About her foregirdle is the zodiac. So it is. Good. Beneath the throne is a floor of tapestry embroidered with fleur-de-lis and fishes. This seems to be adorning the secret rose, which is indicated at the base of the throne. Oh yeah, you can sort of see that. The significance of these symbols has already been explained. In this card also, all symbols are cognate because of the simplicity and purity of the emblem. There is here no contradiction. Such opposition as there seems to be only the opposition necessary to balance. And this is shown by the revolving moons. There you go. I think that's actually kind of interesting that balance is actually represented by the revolving moons, because you can see it also, I just realized it, is if you look at the illustration of Baphomet, it's the same thing. It's two moons where he's sort of pointing, and he's sort of this, Baphomet is this, I guess, conjunction of opposites, and is the salt that brings balance and the unity of Hokma and Bina. Where Keter, you know how he has that sort of flaming torch kind of sticking out of his head? I think that's sort of representative of Keter in that sense. Or the lotus even. Think about it. Because doesn't that sort of look like a, like that comes from Baphomet's head? I mean, that's also something to think about. That maybe also the flame on top of his head is also a lotus, which is both masculine and feminine and masculine. Here we go again with like spinning opposites in our head, going around and round and round like Sufi whirling. Anyway, let's continue. The heraldry of the Empress is twofold. On one side, the pelican of tradition feeding its young from the blood of its own heart. The other, the white eagle of the alchemist. So, just so you know what the pelican is commonly used in Rosicrucianism because it feeds its young from its own bleeding chest, which is sort of an act of love, basically pouring out your blood. And it's sort of Christ or Dionysus even when he was lanced in his chest or his side, I think, and like blood was spilt out. Same sort of idea. And the white blood of the alchemist is sort of the air, this mediation, being able to fly between heaven and earth, which is sort of the Mercury. Yep. So with regard to the pelican, its full symbol is only available to initiates of the fifth degree of the OTO. In general terms, the meaning may be suggested by identifying the pelican herself with the Great Mother and her offspring, with the daughter in the formula of Tetragrammaton. It's because the daughter is the daughter of her mother that she can be raised to her throne. In other language, there is a continuity of life, an inheritance of blood which binds all forms of nature together. There is no break between light and darkness. Natura nol facet saltum. If these considerations were fully understood, it would become possible to reconcile the quantum theory with the electromagnetic equations. Yeah, I don't. That's pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I need to go further into that. The white eagle in the trump corresponds to the red eagle in the consort card, the emperor. Oh, white and red. Okay, so they're actually almost cards that sort of go together, as you can see. And yeah, there's a lamb instead of a pelican in that one, but that's for another day. It is here to necessary to work backwards. And these highest cards are the symbols of perfection, both the initial perfection of nature and the final perfection of art. Not only Isis, but why have I never actually understood that word? Whatever. Consequently, the details of the work pertain to subsequent cards, especially R2-6 and R2-14. Yeah, it's referring to art and what was the other one? Yeah, the lovers. At the back of the card is the arch or door, which is the interpretation of the letter Daleth. This card, summed up, may be called the gate of heaven, but because of the beauty of the symbol, because it's omniform presentation, the student who is dazzled by any given manifestation may be led astray. In no other card is so necessary the disregard of the parts to concentrate upon the whole. It actually is a bit of a Daleth. So yeah, but I think like that instead of concentrating on certain parts, I think that sort of goes for all of them. To be honest, if you think about it, you should try and look at cards in its wholeness. Yeah, I'm actually surprised with this one. Maybe this one isn't. I might do the Emperor probably a bit earlier than I would have anticipated, but I am actually trying to do these trump cards in order of how I feel about them, or whenever I feel I'm ready, which is interesting to think about. So some of the data here, if you want to have a look at it, Aphrodite and Venus, or Freya for Scandinavian. Animals, real and imaginary. A dove, okay. Myrtle, rose, clover, fig, peach, apple, emerald, turquoise. The horns, energy, the barren labor of preparation. What about magical powers? Love filters. The heptagram. Oh, that's actually interesting. Lineal planets and geomany. Heptagram. Transcendental mortality, unchastity, or lust. The door of the mighty ones. Diseases, syphilis and gonorrhea. Typical. That's interesting. Yeah. So with that in mind, we'll actually now look at Lon Milo Duquette's one with understanding the Thoth Tarot. Let's go to that. As we'll include. I might even get some data from that one too. Just give me a second, people. Just got to find it. Yeah, the Empress. So this is sort of understanding it from Lon Milo Duquette's perspective on what we just read. So, the daughter of the mighty one, the planetary trump of Venus, original design crowned with stars, a winged goddess stands upon the moon. She bears a scepter and a shield whereon figure a dove as a symbol of the male and female forces. Okay, there you go. So the dove is actually to, it's a male and female force, which is an interesting thing to think about. And that's what you sort of see in the, I guess, the Oto layman with the dove descending onto the cup. Tree of Life, Path 14, joining Chokmah with Wisdom Dabina, understanding. Colors are emerald green. Okay, so we'll go to here. This is the harmony of the universe. That love unites the will to create with the understanding of that creation. Understand though thine own will. Yeah, love unites the will to create with the understanding of that creation. So you can only sort of understand creation through your own creating, I guess. Um, love and let love, rejoice in every shape of love, and get the thigh rapture and the thigh nourishment of thereof. Okay. It is impossible to summarize the meanings of the symbol of the woman for this very reason that she continually recurs in infinitely varied form. Many-throned, many-minded, manly-willed daughter of Zeus. Thank you very much, Mr. Crowley. At least we can say this. Daleth means door, and woman is the door of heaven when we are conceived. Yeah, so that's a very important thing, I imagine. It's because, well, that actually makes sense why Venus is like sort of relegated to lust and love and that kind of thing, is because if we go by Daleth when it means door, it's sort of like, yeah, that connection between the manifest and the unmanifest sort of happening between male and female, born of man and woman, so, and to create the child. So at least we can say that Daleth means women are the door of heaven when we are conceived, and the door of life and when we are born. The Empress is the trump of Venus, and in mythology, Venus or Aphrodite certainly had or seemed to cause her share of trouble. Most of the time, however, she was less the guileful instigator of mischief and more of the tragic victim of circumstances. In either case, almost everybody was in love with her, and she certainly added a bit of spice to the Olympian soap opera. Speaking of spice, the Empress is the second of the alchemical trumps and represents the element and principle of salt, like Venus, reclining on her love couch awaiting the arrival of her next lover. Crowley describes her as the inactive principle of nature. Salt is matter which must be energized by salt to maintain the whirling equilibrium of the universe. So whirling equilibrium, it's almost like to say that the universe has to be in motion, but it's also always in equilibrium, and it's actually done through the passive principle of salt in alchemical terms. As we can sort of see with the way everything... I mean, think about it for a second. When you look at chemistry, right? Like molecules are actually sort of bound together by different atoms, and it's by electrons. And they're actually constantly whirling, but they're also always in equilibrium as they're matched together. And they're blinking in, and the same electrons are blinking in and out of existence. And it's like a superposition. So that's something to think about. Let's continue. Sulfur, as we will see in the next trump, is represented by the Emperor, who represents the zodiacal sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars. Who was the lover of Venus? It gets scary when this stuff starts to make sense, doesn't it? This card is more than just the full color fold out of the skull or hara of the gods. However, the path of Daleth is one of the only three paths on the tree of life that lies entirely above the abyss. It connects the second Sephirah, Chokmah, the supernal father, to the third Sephirah, Binah, the supernal mother. This is the hallway down which the queen of our Kabbalistic fairy tale tiptoes to get to the bedroom of the king. This is the path of exchange of unimaginable love. So love is the answer, people. And, you know, when we talk about love, we're talking about lust or obsession, not really, or worship even. Not love as in unity with like our opposites and that kind of thing. With purpose and that kind of thing. So that's what it means with love. I think because we too often sort of have an erotic sort of imposition on it. Harris's Empress is perhaps the most tasteful and soothing card in the pack. The cool colors immediately lower my blood pressure. At first glance, she appeared to be the goddess of vegetation, which is exactly what she is. Interesting. Her presence cuts the doorway through towering plants and grasses. The supports of her throne are formed from twisted blades of grass, and upon their tops are perched the sparrow and dove, birds sacred to Venus. Her green skirt is topped with a blouse of passionate red, ornament with bees, and what appears to be dominoes surrounded by spiral rings. Around her waist is the golden belt of the zodiac. Sort of touch on this a bit more, but Milo Duquette sort of going over it again. Her arms suggest the glyph of salt. She bears the lotus scepter in her left hand, and her right right hand and arm curved delicately as if she were holding an invisible baby to her breast. This is the magical gesture called Mater Triumphans, Isis suckling the infant Horus. Perhaps this is just a rehearsal of what is to come. Think about that for a second, folks. The Empress, if you haven't noticed, is pregnant. Her baby floating blissfully in a salty sea of amniotic fluid. What? Let's have a look at that. No way. Maybe. Yeah, well, okay. She is pregnant. In keeping with the motherhood theme, we find at the lower left of the card a white pelican feeding its young from the blood of her own breast. On the lower right is a shield displaying in a white double-headed eagle holding the moon in its beak. Wow, I didn't notice that either. Holding the moon in its beaks. This represents the alchemical white tincture whose name in nature is the moon and silver. Therefore, there is also a red tincture, and we'll discover it in the next trump, the Emperor. So there's a white and red tincture, which obviously is sort of marriage of these two parts. And I wonder if Mercury has anything to do with it. All of these symbols sit upon a carpet adorned with fleurs de lis and tiny fish that Crowley suggests seem to be adorning the secret rose, which is indicated at the base of the throne. Secret Rose of the Empress is certainly worthy of adoration. Her credentials are impeccable. I am nature and God. I reign, I am alone. None other may abide apart. They perish, drawn into my being grown. None other bosom is, to bear, to nourish, to be. The heart of all beneath my zone of blue and gold is scarlet bright to cherish. My own life being, that is, and is not other, for I am God and nature and thy mother. All right, that concludes that reading for the Empress. So hopefully that gives everyone something to talk about. So her being's a very pertinent card, and like this goddess of love and that kind of thing. So so that's actually sort of how things are created, through love, I guess. Not hate. Let's put it that way. Even though it can actually be a driving force all the same. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this podcast, stream, whatever you want to call it. Please like, share, subscribe, comment on my Substack and my YouTube. I will see you guys later.